All right. Well, welcome here. We like to do this in a small room to give the illusion that my stuff's popular. And it works every time, so thank you. There are reasons why we're not in the childbirth, but I'm not going to bother to go into them because actually we're kind of pressed for time. And I'm going to bring this in a little bit. In fact, there's a class here that I don't want to interrupt at 1 o'clock because it's my class. Anyway, I'm going to get started here. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the preview and know something already about Iceland and see where it is. They're way northeast of Canada. It's a place that people avoided for years and years, and now it's being discovered by people. But it has its problems, and it also has some amazing accomplishments, the nation. And so we're going to be going over that today. These are volcanoes. These are volcanoes which are active or have been active somewhat recently. This is what you're looking at is just a hunk of ocean floor that has pushed up and become above the ocean floor, and it's got a crack running right through it, which is, if you looked at the preview, runs like this through there, and even runs under a huge glacier, which you think would melt, because over here the lakes are boiling, that the magma is so close to the surface. But so it's quite a place in terms of geologically. What you're looking at there, somewhat at least, is a volcano in the background. You can barely see it, but that's a great big volcano, and I can't pronounce the names of so many things because just for fun, they love to run a bunch of consonants together. It's one of the tricks that kind of keep their language to themselves, and I can't do it. But it's a huge volcano in an almost perfect circle. They don't always blow out that way. But all that stuff in the foreground, those huge boulders, are things that came out of there, and they went for miles and miles and miles. I didn't have to go this close to the volcano to get those pictures. And there's nothing you can do with this land. You can't build on it very easily without, how are you going to get through that stuff? How can you bring in agricultural equipment? It's really only good for sheep grazing because they can go around these rocks and graze it off, and that's what they do with it. These things, unfortunately I have no scale in there, but these things are bigger than a house. These are just hunks from that volcano that are several miles from it, that came out of that volcano and landed here and cooled millions of years ago. The island itself is actually pretty new. Geologically, it's only about 20 million years old, which doesn't sound new, but it's relatively new compared to most of the landforms out there. Some of these hunks fell into existing rivers and cooled there. And these things have happened so many times over the millions of years that there's layers and layers of this stuff, and it makes for a beautiful landscape, but it's a harsh beauty. It's not like, the beauty that you see in other places. The water's incredibly clear. The government actually suggests that you can drink it, these wild waters. And we did. I don't recommend it beneath the sheep fields necessarily. But I don't know, Icelandic sheep might be different. At any rate, there's waterfalls everywhere because, of course, winter's long and a lot of snow piles up in ice. And then in summer it melts and things just go crazy. That's one of the major rivers during this melt. We were there in July. And I don't think this was the peak, but it was pretty close. And it's just a furious stream of water going over this cliff. And if you look carefully, you can see people, and I'm going to the right now, panning to the right. You can see people up there watching it from a distance. And here's another pan to the right. Yeah, this place will blow your mind with beauty and grandeur. And further on down, it settles down into this river here. And without the mist, it's more dry. You see the craziest things there, where you just have this like drinking fountain, natural drinking fountain, except it's hot, So make some tea, I guess. And it's, that kind of thing is all over this place. Steam from the heat, and yet in this very cold place we call Iceland. This is where those boiling lakes are. This is land, of course, no lake there, but just hot spots are popping up all over the place in that area. And that blue, I was told at least, the blue is cobalt that gives it that blue. And you'll see this in the swimming pools that are geologically heated as well. But these are just some of the landforms. So then we're going to do the plants and animals here in a second. The light is very indirect, right? Because it's so far north that the sun hits it in a direct way. And then when you get sunsets, they last maybe 4 or 5 hours. So does the sunrise. And you get a lot of sideways light that makes for interesting pictures in these fjords on the west side, which are places people don't usually go, but Mary and I got a four-wheel drive and took off and actually slept in it, because there's not everywhere can you find a hotel, plus they cost too much, really. It's $200 to $400, and for people that travel a lot, that's just not possible. This shot here was probably taken about 10 o'clock at night. So you've got this light that just lingers and never does quite get dark in Iceland in the summer. Lichens growing everywhere that looks like moss, but it's mostly lichens that grow there, and the sheep eat those too. Wildflowers everywhere. I'm not sure why they have so many, but it's something that can pop up, get its seeds to maturity and die and make it through that short summer. So you see a lot of stuff that you would not see anywhere else. And it helps the pictures of birds there too, because it's always pretty on the grounds. This is a golden plover. And so is that, of course, but it's just a couple steps more, and I got some more wildflower pictures in there. And this is a black-tailed godwit. It's not often you see those around here. And they're about 2 feet tall. Here's one flying. Mary and I hauled thousands of dollars of photographic equipment up here to see this, to get these pictures. And she's taken some of them. She's a teacher too up in Pine River, so she can't be here. I want to give her credit for she's a great traveler and a very artistic eye for all kinds of good wildlife spotter too. And that was a seagull, and these are whooper swans, they're called, up there. And it's obviously nesting season there, and they're pretty far along, those little ones. They're heavily protected like our swans. In fact, Iceland's really protective about its wildlands and wildlife compared to us, except for whales. We'll talk about that in a minute, because that's been a tradition to do some whaling. We came around the bend. This is some form of goose, and I don't know my gooses, evidently. So to do what you can with that. They decided we were not good characters and took off, and I wanted a still picture, but even that's kind of cool, so I took it. There are ducks there that we don't see because they go down the Africa flyway. Iceland's closer to Europe than it is to America, and a lot of planes stop over there. A lot of you have stopped in Iceland to go to Europe, but this is Europe too. And they work with the euro and stuff like that quite a bit, but they also use dollars and their own currency, the krona. But these are critters I've never seen before. And this is the Arctic tern, which flies more than any other critter on the planet. It goes from pole to pole every year, and it doesn't go in a straight line. So they calculate its migration each year is 56,000 miles. I read it, so it must be true. If I were a tern, I'd go straight, cut it down to 50. Yeah. But they're beautiful. They're also, the wingspan about 2 feet. And if you get too close to their nests, they will attack you. When they start hovering over you, that's your yellow light. And then you make your pictures there. And you don't want to disturb their nest anyway, right? So It's an amazing bird. These are seals. You can tell them apart from sea lions, which they also have, because they don't have any rear legs. They just have these fins. Although, over there on the left, doesn't that look like a big toe sticking out there? To me, that has got to be a big toe. It's just, evolution is underway. So, and they're trying to tell us something. I think they're saying, you know, for God's sake, sleep on your side, it's better. You know? These are sea lions, and they do have the legs. Not much of a leg, but here's one hanging off, right? And they do walk on them. This would be the foot, and the ankle would be, and the knee all in one there. And that'd be Daddy there. He's got the harem going on, and everybody's sleeping in the sun. This is maybe the cutest critter I've ever seen. Sea otters. And they also have an interesting characteristic. They are the hairiest per square inch critter on the planet. And the hair traps little air bubbles, and they can float all day in the ocean. And those feet are so powerful, those rear feet, that they can catch fish. They can outswim them, at least a lot of them. That's Mary, and she's looking up at me, and that's a whale's jaw that she's standing in. That's the blue whale. So if you were Jonah, that's a little bit, you know. He quit fishing after that. Okay, so this is a blue whale too, and they're about 75 feet long, the biggest ones. And so I'm in the Husavik Whale Museum here, and that's the jawbone. And the tail goes way back there. If you look carefully, you can see it. I'm going to show you another picture now from the other side. And that's the tail on the far right there, the last knuckle on that tail. And this is a blue whale as well. Look at those fins beneath the skin, their hands, right? And of course, these critters are mammals. When they shoot the babies with a spear, instead of the mothers running off, they swim over to their calves and try to nurse them. They're definitely sentient beings, and a lot of people are saying it's time to quit whaling all over the planet. The Icelanders needed it. They survived on it. It's part of their culture, and some have not wanted to let it go. And there's enough whales that they could whale, you know, although the minkies are endangered. And you will find minke whale on their menus, but people are walking out of restaurants when they see minke whale on the menu. In fact, we did ourselves. But we apologize because the Icelanders are so nice that you wouldn't do that. You can't act like you can in America and be respected. You have to say, I'm sorry, I gotta leave. We're against the minke whale on the menu, but we're very sorry. And we know it's part of your culture, but we're out of here. And so, now that's Leif Erikson. He's supposed to have been, he's sort of like a Columbus figure, mythological somewhat. And he was a real person. And Norway said, yep, he discovered Iceland. But since that time, they've discovered coins, gold coins that date back to the Roman Empire, 300 BC. I'm sorry, not BC, 300 AD. And so it looks like the Roman Empire that stretched all the way to Great Britain probably had some sailing ships that went over here and dropped a few of those coins off. And so he's sort of a phony explorer, as was Christopher Columbus, of course, because the Indians were here thousands of years before Christopher Columbus. But these myths don't die easily. And the King of Norway decided this is our land for a while. And then he converted to Catholicism. And in the 10th century, just after it was discovered by Leif Erikson, and he then forced Catholicism on all of Iceland by threat of execution. They did fight. They had a Norse religion, and which was even popular in Norway. Nevertheless, it wasn't popular with the king, and he said, you know, you got to go. Well, the Norse religion includes the god Thor and a mother. So there's a figure that's divine in a sense in the Norse religion, which is actually becoming more popular right now in Iceland. And the baby was Thor, but the mother, whose name I can't pronounce or won't try, was an earth goddess. So we have at least a female figure of some respect in a religion in this case. Well, the same thing happened again 500 years later when Martin Luther left the Catholic Church and basically started his own gig. And the Danish king, and they had a lot of Danes over there by then, Christian III, he forced Lutheranism, the Lutheran faith, on the whole country. And the Catholic Church, which had collected quite a bit of money over the years, it lost its treasure, and their lands were taken by the Danes. And the Danes took the money back to Denmark. And so what happened was Iceland was broke. They suffered a terrible loss. And in the middle of this, they were being hit with volcanoes and famines and the Black Death and that kind of thing. So life was incredibly tough for the people on Iceland. This house, which has lost its roof, it's fallen in, was in, according to a sign that's right outside it, was in use in the 1900s. As, you know, in the early 1900s. So you can see the people were barely alive there, and 20 people were in this house. They, in part, used body heat to stay alive. Here's another higher view of it. It was low. They didn't try to go up too high because you had to hold that heat in. Here's a shot from the back, and you can see the Hotel Honda here, where Mary and I slept. There has to be some reason for being small, and that's it for us, I guess. But it actually worked out pretty well because it's like a movable tent. When it rained, we did not get wet, and we could have used the heater if we'd wanted to, but we brought down bags and were quite comfortable in there. And then we could get places and camp places that we otherwise couldn't have done, and so it was a good deal for us. But there are other shelters like this all over Iceland, and that are earth sheltered, you know, and they did the same thing for their sheep. And you see those old places now are mostly fallen down, and they have barns sometimes for them now. But these shelters work better than anything because of they use the mass of the earth to take the edges off weather extremes. This is a picture you've probably seen in a liquor commercial, but it was stolen from the, or at least borrowed, from the Iceland museums. It's a real picture of a sheep farmer, and kind of give you an idea of the tough life that they faced. Whaling was a big part of their gig. Sometimes whales would beach, and sometimes they would find ways of snaring them or something before they had the spears. But mostly it was about cod. This is the holy grail for Iceland. They've made their fortunes in early days off this cod. Here they are salting it and letting it dry in the sun so they can use it all winter, and they won't be out of protein. Now, what are you going to eat for B vitamins, though? Because there's nothing like that in the cod. So for that, they ate seaweed, just like these sheep are doing. At low tide, when the tide went out, they gathered kelp, which is a very powerful greenery. You know, you can make a good salad out of it. In fact, you can get those in Iceland. And the sheep like it too and do very well on it. So this is low tide, the ocean floor, and the sheep are out there until the tide comes back in, and they're doing very well. That's that red stuff, right? I'm not an expert on kelp, but there's many seaweeds out there, and they're almost all edible. Life was really hard for women in Iceland. I hate to mention it really because it's such a slam to religion, but they were treated like children by religion, and when their husbands died, they were not the family head anymore. They were basically doled out to people who needed help, and their kids too. Families divided. It was really a pretty cruel several hundred years in history. The men didn't have it so easy either. Fishing had to be awfully hard without the clothing options we have now. And here they're drinking rum. They're supposed to be fishing. I don't know. I've done that kind of fishing, you know, but you don't catch many. Yeah, honey, they weren't biting today, you know. Try it again tomorrow. So Then they mechanized and started, put a powder charge behind these spears and shot them into whales, and then that rope down here would spin out and hopefully hold the whale. And here's one in a museum there. That's the actual tip. They had the whale knives that, for carving up the whales, and that's about 6 feet long, that long one. And it's a grisly business. I mean, these are big critters, and they bleed a lot. And you can get used to that. Those of us who eat meat, shouldn't look too far down our noses at them. But those are blue whales belly up there. These last several I took out of the museum. Okay, you can sort of tell they're old looking. I took out of the museum. And this one too. And by 1938, Iceland was modernizing, but all the money was in the hands of a few people, and times were still hard for them. The Danes were in with the ruling class, but the Danish lost control in World War II when Hitler overtook Denmark for a while, and so then the Icelanders took that opportunity to declare their freedom, and it became a republic in 1944. Now, since that time, things have really gotten better for the Icelanders. They had been so beat up on, so oppressed, that what they really valued was freedom and justice and fairness. And what a nation they've made in a very short time. Today, the ranking is number 2 in world happiness, and there's a reason for that. We're going to see that. And it's always in the top 5, and it's gone socialist. It's a shared economy, and they support everybody. They make sure nobody's a loser. They don't have the homeless population. They don't have the ghettos. They don't have the incarceration or the homicide, for that matter, that we have, because people feel like they're in this together, that they've got a stake in the system. And if you're wondering how they've measured happiness, I think that's a fair question, because it might be arbitrary. And it is a little arbitrary. They use GDP per capita, that's gross domestic product per person, right? Social support, not sure, they don't say how they did that. Health, life expectancy, that's easy. Freedom to make life choices, generosity, I suppose that's charity. Perception of corruption, and everything else got a little basket over here. So it is somewhat arbitrary, but there's every reason to believe they're doing pretty well. Their schools have smaller class sizes than ours, so they don't have to drug their kids and pretend that they have a disease called attention deficit disorder, which has no actual biological markers at all. This is a little primary school overlooking one of the fjords there. And the college this is very much like our college. It looks a lot like it in many ways. And it's not free, but after you pay an $800 registration fee, you're good to go for the next 4 years. They do make you, make a commitment, but after that it's free. And they do that with all kinds of things. There's elder care, there's daycare, and they support families. They make sure families don't fail. We just let our families fail, and then there's all kinds of consequences from that, bankruptcies and divorces and things like that. Iceland does have, to be fair, Iceland has a fairly high divorce rate. But they're at least not in bankruptcy and failing and can't get health care. Here in America, people are just up against it all the time, stressed out, and it really shows. And for Icelanders, they love the country they've made. There's a nationalism that's absolutely amazing. They love each other, not just their system. And so hearts are a symbol all over that country. Everywhere you look, they've taken the Icelandic flag here, but they're in the windows of their houses. And they make maps of their place like this. Yes, this is the second biggest city, Akureyri, and that's what they did to the stoplights. Makes you feel like stopping, doesn't it? And then they take pictures and put them on the internet. Oh, look at this stain. It looks like a heart, And here's just a hole in the ice that happened to be shaped like a heart. So that went on the internet. Like, wow. Here's a rock underwater. These I got off internet. Okay, these here. But this I found, Mary spotted this one. This farmer has left this hay in the shape of a heart. The country takes this seriously. They don't take for granted a good thing. Now, you can see my sources up at the top. I want to show you some social indicators. I'm a sociologist. We look at, the best data we can find to see how a country's doing. Infant mortality, life expectancy, percent with AIDS, homicide rate, incarceration rate, all this other stuff. Let's take a look at this now. USA versus Iceland. It's really capitalism versus socialism, friends. Infant mortality, look at this. This is for every 1,000 live births, this is the average rate, in a year. And so we're losing 3 times as many babies because we just won't take care of our poor, mostly. Life expectancy, they're beating us at that. Percent with AIDS, they've got half as much of it as we do. Homicide rate, they've got 12 times less homicide. Incarceration rate, look at that. CO2 emissions per capita, much less, although they do have an advantage there with that geothermal heat, so that may not be a fair comparison. But they're trying to move very quickly towards zero carbon releases. And you know what's happening tonight in Florida. It's about to be filleted by Hurricane Matthew. That doesn't mean it's global warming, but this stuff is happening all over the planet at rates never seen before. And all the scientific bodies consider it a settled argument. We're wrecking the planet. You can see the college thing. And here, look, women's pay equality rank. They're the best in the world. They used to be among the worst, right, with the way they were treated. And they settled that deal. And I'm so proud of them for it. And they're working on this whale thing. There's stuff, little shops popping up like this about where you can sign up and do something about whales. And this is one of them. I think in 10 years, my guess is they will not be whaling anymore because there's a lot of resistance to it. And I think it's time to move on. Part of their social evolution. I hope they do. You can hope whatever you like. The Icelanders themselves tend to be fair-skinned. To live in these environments with so little sunlight, you need light skin so that the sunlight can get through your skin, hit the fat beneath your skin, and turn it into vitamin D. And so you see everyone from Ireland to Iceland to wherever, they're all very light-skinned because evolution favored them. That's the whole idea behind being white, because we all know now, at least the scientists know, we all are Africans. Originally, we all came from Africa. But they have evolved this look, and they do have minorities. They're not. It's kind of like Minnesota. They're not common in the percents that you see in America in general, but it's kind of like Minnesota, where we have a population of 10 or 15% people of color. It's probably higher now. That was Mary talking to some young ladies at a concert. You can see the blonde hair, and there's quite a bit of it, blonde and red. And everybody's so comfortable and unstressed out and have so much time to talk and so much generosity because they're not so stressed out. And so you see a lot of relaxed, happy people. No wonder it's happy. Okay, so these people are neither blonde nor necessarily happy. I don't know. But for balance, I threw this in, okay? I don't know, And this guy might be a tourist because Reykjavik's full of them. In fact, Iceland's got a problem with too many tourists, twice as many in the summer as Icelanders. Yeah, and they're getting kind of tired of that, I think. They're proud of their architecture. This building itself was just a complication to make, all kinds of angles and everything, but they were happy to make it, to show their abilities, their high level of intellect, education, and ability. In the rural areas, you're going to see a lot more of this, but it's all well kept. There's no litter there. They don't do that. Soccer is the game. I don't know if there's another game up there. It is so important to them, soccer. And they've only got 300,000 people. So when they play the other countries, they're at a terrible disadvantage. Because these other countries have 32, 200 times more people to draw from. So on their team, which just beat Britain by the way, recently. They have dentists, 40 years old and stuff like that, people that shouldn't be that good, but they do amazingly well. Even the sheep are playing soccer there, see that? Everybody wants to fit in, you know? So, and then this is a little restaurant. They like to keep it small. They don't like Walmarts and Targets and big box stuff. They like it small. Small is beautiful. If you keep it small, as E.F. Schumacher, the economist, said, then you keep power centers from forming that end up controlling government. I don't know if you've ever heard of that kind of thing, but it could be happening here. So it's little coffee shops and little restaurants and happy people. Not making a fortune, but doing okay. Now, I don't know if you can see this. They don't take work too seriously. It says, gone for a week or so at their shop. I want to do that. Here's their beer, which I saw very close up. 5.6%, but it's a little buzz in a jar, and the Viking label, you know, it's quite good. One thing I don't like about Icelanders is their fondness for accordions. You know, I don't mean that. I say accordions in moderation, but they're not moderate. They're just, I don't know what to say. Think whatever you like as we go through these pictures. No, they're fine. But it's just a lot of fun to make fun of accordions, isn't it? But they're very good at it, and you'll see people on street corners with their hats out and making dough. And this guy, you can't see him, but he's playing a piano beneath it. They like, you know, some sort of piano or accordion background and everything in the bands. There's people just playing. It's July and they're outdoors celebrating the summer. Everybody's been moving away from the country, moving to Reykjavik, which has more than half the people in one little town. One town about the size of St. Cloud, maybe a little bit bigger. And so you see a lot of abandoned houses like this all over the place. And these cute little churches are everywhere. We actually camped within sight of this thing one night, and it was Saturday night, and when we woke up and we thought we'd see people at the church on Sunday. There's just not enough people to keep this church going. Plus, I think for reasons that you've already seen, these folks have secularized a lot. They don't have, after what they saw Hitler do with Christianity, they don't have a high opinion of religion overall. But there are believers, of course, and they're mostly in churches in the cities because they can have a population big enough to support a church. We saw church after church with nobody in it on a Sunday. But this is their pride and joy of a church. I assume it's Lutheran. I'm not certain, though. Failed in that, finding out about that. But what a building is, it's a block long and takes up a lot of very, very valuable real estate in Reykjavik. I went inside, and nobody was doing anything except walking around as tourists there. But this wasn't Sunday, so this is not a typical Sunday. I'm sure they have some service there. You see the pipe organs in the background here. It gives you an idea of how far away that is. I'm going to zoom in on that. See the people on the right? It's a massive, and it's a fine piece of architecture. This is the cathedral behind me as I shot that picture. Energy-wise, they are really going after this energy. I wish I'd gotten better pictures, but these places are so hot and dangerous, they don't want people around them, so I didn't get up close except one time when I decided I just needed a shot for you. You see the ground is practically on fire here, steaming. And this is a boiling lake. And so it says, danger, like if you can't figure that out, a sign's not going to help you. So I didn't want to get within 20 feet of it because, it was like scalding just to stand there. But they can run pipes in that. They can get steam off that. They can run generators off that. They're getting electricity. They're heating their homes. And they want to start charging car batteries so that they don't have to use gasoline. If you go around, the Icelanders are just, they're a wacky, fun-loving people. This guy likes to dress up like a Viking. I don't think he's got a problem, if you know what I mean. I think he's just just a goof. And he was at this horse ranch, and I think he did work around there, but he also was kind of a character, like at Disneyland or World or whatever, Disney Galaxy. But the knives, and everything makes him look hostile, but he's not hostile at all. Although Mary pulled a knife on him, but they settled it amicably, and so he's still alive. She's controls me too. Okay, now there were wars, the cod wars between England and Iceland. England bullied its way into right along the shores and fished out the best it could the cod from Iceland, and Iceland didn't have the money for the great big trawlers that England had, and so they've got a cartoon here depicting the British as monsters and pirates, and they're the good guys with just a slingshot, right, instead of the cannons over here. And so this was pretty bad. Now the Icelanders didn't have an army; they still don't. They don't want an army. They've seen what armies do to your revenue, your tax revenue, right? Sucking up half of ours. And so instead they went out bravely and cut their nets. They're cutting their nets there, the British nets. And then the British would ram their boats. And it went on for years. And it could have been pretty ghastly what happened. The whole world turned against Britain because they were within just a few miles of the shore. And now there's a 200-mile limit. I don't know if you know that, but you give these nations 200 miles to call their own and stay out of it. And mostly that's happening now. But one country did support Britain, unfortunately, in this, and that was the United States. We just side with them no matter if they're, disrupting things in Iran or whatever they're doing. And that's the whole story behind the Shah of Iran. And so much else. We seem to have learned the wrong lessons from them, I think. But at any rate, Britain finally had to back off when the whole world turned against it, and the United States. And Iceland was in NATO, and they treated it like it was just another third world country, which is bad enough. So this is in a museum. I mean, they are adamant about this. And so there's a lot of fishing boats out there. And there's a lot of cod. You put your lure in the water, and in a few minutes you will have a cod, and maybe seconds. I mean, they're around. And they're about the size of a walleye, to bigger, and they're delicious fresh. I mean, they're unbelievable. The cod we get is usually a long ways from, the catching point. And so this is on a whaling ship where they let the kids catch some cod. They even use cod for light fixtures. There is a difference in cultures, And these are cod drying houses, which you find all over Iceland. Notice how neat and clean everything is, except for the cod fixtures. These are cod drying, they salt them and dry them in there now. And you can go out on sailing boats to see the whales. And they're beautiful, gorgeous boats, but they cost very much. You would pay, $500 or something to go out for a day on those. And you can go for $100. We went out on this whale watching ship in the sea, and it's of course very cold there. And they make you wear clothing that they pick out for you. And then they go out looking for whales, which is not hard to find there. And they scan, those some very educated eyes, they can see the blowhole situation there. And then they spot them. This guy could run the ship with his right hand and use the microphone to explain things with his left hand. And this is a humpback whale, maybe 40 feet long. And it's a female, he said. He probably knows. He said she's just breathing. They stay down for a long time, and they come up and breathe for 5 or 10, 20 minutes. And when we got close, and we were not very close, as a telephoto lens, he says they get irritated and they go back down. And when they do, they make this hump when they're going deep. And that means the head's down, and it's going to go straight down and away from us. And then you see the tail up to use that weight to push itself down until it fades away. While I was on the boat, this is the poster material, right, that I made from the seagull. They were hoping for some fish guts. So that became the poster. This is from Alaska, but I want you to see what it looks like when these whales jump. I never did get a great picture in Iceland, but this is a three-part picture here of a humpback going straight up, and he's flipping over backwards. He's going to land on his head and back. Here he is just about to land. And this was also from this summer. I was in Alaska too in June. These are the famous horses of Iceland. They are wild, and yet they ride them. They turn them loose in the winter, if you can imagine that. They turn them loose. And in Iceland, with no light and all the cold, how do they survive? Well, they eat seaweed. And they also dig through the grass, or the snow and the ice, to get to the grass and save themselves. And if you don't cut their hair, they end up looking like sheepdogs, really. And so, and I like them that way. That's, they need that to keep them warm, right? That's very functional. But in summer, they do cut their hair. This one was uncut, so I liked it. But these are the wildest. They are tough. Like the Icelandic people, they're tough. And here, this one is, the wind is blowing its mane up. But they've got quite the hairdo going. And this one's been trimmed. This one too, of course. But they're very wild. They're always kicking and biting each other like the Mustangs out west. And you would not think you should ride them. They're not as tall as horses here, like quarter horses. They're not ponies, really. Some people call them ponies, but they're horses, and they're tough and they're strong. Anything that wouldn't make it through the winter. That's the ocean out in front of them. And they've run to the point where they can't run any longer here in this case, and they were slowing down. So Mary's a horse person. There's no stopping her. And so, it's a marriage, so I had to go. And I wanted to take pictures, so I got the back. I got on the back, so I could take pictures of the whole caravan as we went through Iceland's remote West Fjords area, if you've ever been there. Mary's right in front of me there, and everything was going cool until the guide's horse, which is in front of Mary, kicked her horse. Then her horse kicked my horse. My horse had no one to kick, and there I was. So it started to throw me. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm a pretty good rider. I actually did rodeo when I was a kid to try to impress my dad. I don't think it worked. But he started spinning around. I'm on a horse as I do this. This is shortly before this, the terrible story began to unfold. And so it started spinning around, spinning until I fell off. And I was really holding on. I was really grabbed, but I felt like a string on a string trimmer after a while. And I didn't want to hit those rocks, so I looked for some grass and tried to time it, and I hit the grass and didn't get hurt. They don't let anybody, and I walked home. The horse ran a mile. They couldn't recover the horse for quite a while. Seriously. They don't let you go off. You're not going to be tearing up the turf with off-road vehicles. They think that's stupid and ugly. What you see all over the Brainerd area where people have run off the road and eroded hillsides and into rivers and stuff like that, they would think that is like a form of litter. And so they won't let you do it, and they tell you to call 112 to nail these people if you see them doing it. And tourists are doing it. So that is irritating them. Sheep is big over there. I got to keep moving here. And so you see some amazing sights of sheep. I don't know what it's there for. There's nothing to eat, really. This is at night. That's the moon. There on the center right. But I just turned the light up so that I could get this picture. And this is a sheep separating device. They put them in the center and then separate them out for shearing or whatever they want to do. Okay, dangers to Iceland. It's stuff like this. These are epicenters. Look at them. They're just getting nailed. And the tourists are another problem in a sense that they're overwhelming the Icelandic culture, and they're not all so nice as Icelanders. They're not taking turns at things like traffic stops and stuff like that. And so that's been a problem for them. The other thing that really worries them now is they've got so many of their cities on the sea level. And at sea level like this, they can be easily overwhelmed. They've got a little barrier up there, but the kind of sea levels that we're expected to have in the next 50 years is going to mean this whole city is screwed. And right now, I just heard today that they're expecting as much as a 9-foot storm surge. That's not just a wave. That means if it happened here, it'd be up to here. You know what I mean? It would ruin this whole downtown Isafudor area. And then there will be waves on top of that in Florida tonight. This is a tragedy in the making tonight. And that's their future. And they don't really know quite what to do about it. This is a shot from Alaska. I'm cheating here. But I went to see the glaciers with a bunch of scientists this summer. And they're all very, very concerned and worried about what's going on here. And that's a piece of ice that broke off a glacier that hasn't been broken off in 10,000 years. They were fishing it out and looking at it, and they were actually measuring its weight and stuff. This is something else that they've put together because the gales, the snowstorms, are becoming much more violent and unpredictable. They're buying heavier equipment to clear the roads. And the same thing, they're having to buy rescue boats, ships, to be able to save people who are out on the open ocean and get into trouble. And so they're trying to adjust to a weather future that's crazy. Here's something else that scares them. There's Icelanders that we were talking to that are very mad that this is here, because this is a propeller of one of the gigantic fishing trawlers that is maybe outside their limits, their 200-mile limit, but it is taking too many fish, most of which are thrown away because they're not edible species. And so they were fixing it here. They were welding it because it must have hit a rock or something. And some of the Icelanders were mad that it was here. They said, we should be helping them. You know, those people are destroying fishing and killing so much sea life. If you're going to go there, do what I did and we did, and just read, so you know what you're looking at when you go there. You know where you want to go, where you don't want to go, and how to save money, because it's very expensive in Iceland. And you know how to play the game. Here's a road now. This is called the Ring Road. I'm hurrying, trying to get all this in. So you can get around it, and that makes it look like it's pretty easy. But when you get out there, look at the roads. They're not straight. You're going to spend forever trying to get around. But that's cool because it's so beautiful. But give yourself some time. The food, you know, this is lamb stew, and that's just pasta for Mary. And this is a couple of drinks, and that would be like $45 without the tip. So, you know, we actually, in the guidebooks say, bring your own food. We brought canned beans, you know. Now here, Mary, I said, be still, and so she did her mannequin thing, which really does look real. I was trying to get a shot here, but she doesn't take, you know, suggestions well. So this is a little coffee house, and that might be a mannequin. And here we are. This is, again, before the scene, the terrible scene began to unfold. But anyway, those are the ponies. We had great horses, really. And we had a lot of fun with that, and I'm glad I didn't get hurt when I was thrown. The hot pot is kind of an institution there. It is, you know, where the warm water is suitable for people to swim in, but not to use for energy. So they turn them into swimming pools. And you can see the water is near to boiling over here, but over here you can pick your temperature. It's not so bad. And people from all over come to those things. It's also expensive, about $65 to get into this one. This is the best one in the country, away from the crowds where it's very sparsely populated. We're towards the end now. Scott, what was our code?
When the duck flies at midnight.
Okay, the duck is about to fly at midnight. Okay. He's going to, in a minute, but not yet. Don't turn it off, but we're getting very close. Okay. I've got 3 more slides, but I just thought I'd get the duck up there. Okay, so now this is a place. This is a place where we camped in the car, and that's a bay, and this is morning. Now I'm going to show you afternoon, and then sunset, and then midnight. You should go. You should go. It is so beautiful, and this is not unusual at all to see something like this. Now, I'm going to duck. Now I'm going to shut this projector off, and I want to show you something else. I want to show you the, let me shut this off here. And turn that other one on, Scott, if you can find it in the dark. It'll take a while for that to heat up. Now, when you know what happened with England and Iceland, right? The Cod Wars. So they never can beat England because England's got too many people and they're very into soccer too. But last year, or no, it was this year actually, they beat England. And the crowd, of course, turned out, when they came back to Reykjavik, almost everyone in Iceland was there to greet them. And now we got to get up, find this. Let me see if I can do this. And Scott's better at this than I am. That's not saying much. Okay, now we got to get on. Okay, we got it up. Yep, it's got to be the PC. Okay. So now you're going to see the Icelandic chant, which now the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings are trying to copy this now and not doing a very good job yet. But this is the Icelandic chant, which is an amazing ritual, which is a solidifying ritual. They're so proud of their soccer team, and that's what this is. Go ahead. Thanks, Scott. That's all I have for you. Thanks for coming.